On a radiant afternoon in Los Angeles, the sun cast a golden glow over the city, painting a picture of serene perfection. In a quiet, affluent neighborhood, the streets were lined with pristine lawns and luxury cars, each exuding an air of calm sophistication. Amidst this tranquility, an elderly couple found themselves in a moment of struggle, unnoticed by the world around them. They had just left a routine checkup at a nearby hospital, and now the 100-year-old gentleman and his frail wife were trying to make their way to their car, parked along the curb. The woman, her posture slightly stooped, leaned heavily on her walker, each step a testament to her determination. Her husband, equally aged and visibly lacking in strength, was by her side, his hands steadying her arm as they moved slowly and carefully. He tried with all his might to help her into the passenger seat, but his strength faltered. Despite his spirit's willingness, his century-old body simply couldn't comply. He paused, taking a breath to regain his composure, while she offered a reassuring smile, masking the strain each movement caused her. Around them, people continued to walk by, some glancing their way but not stopping. In the hurried rush of city life, it was easy to assume someone else would step in to help, or perhaps they felt unsure of how to approach the situation. It was a reality of modern urban living, where the pace often overshadowed the need for human connection. As the old man tried once more to assist his wife, a sleek black Tesla rolled up, pulling over just a few feet away. The driver, a man in his early 50s with a familiar face, had been out running errands when he noticed the couple and couldn't shake the image from his mind. He stepped out of the car, recognizing the challenge they were facing. It was Elon Musk. Elon, dressed simply, blended into the surroundings as he moved through the upscale streets of Los Angeles. He didn't stand out, appearing like just another person running errands on a sunny afternoon. That day, he happened to be in this part of the city for an important meeting nearby, his usual responsibilities at Tesla and SpaceX pulling him to various corners of the city. As he parked his car, he noticed the elderly couple struggling near the curb. From his seat, he observed them for a moment, taking in the situation before deciding to step in. The man's hands were visibly trembling as he tried to support his wife, who clutched her walker unsteadily, each movement looking like an uphill battle. A faint frown of concern crossed Elon's face as he watched, sensing they needed help, but were either too accustomed to managing alone or too proud to call out for assistance. Elon walked over with an intent look, his steps purposeful but not hurried. As he reached them, he gently cleared his throat to announce his presence, not wanting to startle them. "Hello there," he said with a friendly but respectful voice. "Would you like a hand?" The elderly man looked up, a bit surprised, his eyes narrowing slightly, as he tried to make out who was standing before him. He blinked, perhaps unsure of why this stranger had approached, but then he noticed Elon's outstretched hand offering a steady point of support. The man looked at his wife, who gave a small, appreciative nod, clearly relieved at the offer. "Thank you, young man," the old gentleman said. "It's getting harder these days." Elon smiled at the term. "We're all here to help each other, right?" He rarely thought of himself as particularly young these days, but next to this 100-year-old, it felt fitting. Elon extended his arm to the woman, introducing himself as he helped her balance. "My name is Elon," he said, his tone gentle. "I noticed you could use a little help getting in." The elderly man's face lit up in surprise, his eyebrows raising slightly, as if the name sounded familiar, but not immediately clear. "Elon, you say?" he asked, straining to hear, his hearing, like his strength, wasn't what it once was. Well, thank you, Elon. That's very kind of you. At that moment, Elon realized the man didn't recognize him, but that didn't bother him at all. In fact, he found it refreshing. He hadn't approached to earn any public praise or score moral points. He'd simply felt the urge to help. It was a rare instance where he could step in and offer assistance without any expectation or assumption from those he was helping. For Elon, this was a moment of genuine human connection, free from the usual attention and assumptions his name often carried. He wasn't the CEO of Tesla or SpaceX at that moment. He was just a fellow human being offering a helping hand to someone in need. In a way, Elon felt relieved that the elderly couple didn't know who he was. If they had recognized him, he feared they might assume he was only helping for the sake of his image or to gain publicity. He knew that's often how the public saw his actions, especially given how his every move seemed to end up in headlines. Even when he genuinely wanted to make a difference, it was difficult to separate his intentions from the ever-present spotlight. His mind flashed back to the time he donated $50 million to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital in 2021 during the Inspiration 4 space mission. The donation was part of a larger initiative to raise $200 million for pediatric cancer research, and while he was proud to support such a cause, he couldn't ignore how quickly the media had latched onto the story. Though he'd acted out of a sincere desire to help, the attention that followed had left him feeling strangely detached, as if the focus had shifted from the purpose of the donation to the figure behind it. For Elon, this constant media attention around his good deeds often weighed heavily. It was as though the public image of Elon Musk, the billionaire philanthropist, overshadowed his personal motivation to contribute positively to the world. Over time, he'd found it difficult to stay connected to the intention behind his actions, with each act of kindness becoming just another headline. In moments like this, with the elderly couple who had no idea who he was free to simply be himself. It felt like a small gift to be able to help without any of the usual baggage that came with his identity. Here, he was just a passerby, lending a hand. It was a refreshing change, a reminder that his kindness didn't always have to come with strings attached. And in that moment, talking to two people who had no idea about his wealth, companies, or media presence, he felt more grounded than he had in a long time. Elon Musk snapped out of his thoughts and then approached the elderly woman. The elderly couple had seemed hesitant at first, unsure if anyone would truly help them. Yet, here was Musk, patiently approaching with a gentle smile that conveyed warmth and respect. He stopped beside her walker, lowering himself to her eye level, and spoke in a soft, comforting tone. "Don't worry," he said. "We're just going to make sure you're comfortable." The elderly woman gave a faint, grateful smile, her hand trembling slightly as she reached out. Her husband stood beside her, visibly relieved but still concerned. Elon took his time, understanding the importance of handling the situation with care. He acknowledged the husband's feelings with a reassuring nod, signaling that he understood how much she meant to him. Carefully, Elon positioned himself to support her as he helped her up from her walker, making sure she was comfortable and steady. With practiced care, Elon placed one hand behind the elderly woman's back and the other under her arm to lift her securely from her walker. He moved carefully, ensuring she was as comfortable as possible. Her husband followed closely, watching Elon's steady, gentle approach. Once they reached the couple's car, Elon carefully helped her into the passenger seat, making sure to avoid any sudden or uncomfortable movements. After she was seated, He adjusted the seat angle for extra comfort, ensuring she was fully relaxed before stepping back. "How's that? Are you comfortable?" Elon asked, looking her in the eyes. She nodded, a smile beginning to spread across her face. The elderly man stood beside them, visibly touched by Elon's consideration. Elon then turned to him and said, "Would you like to help me secure her seatbelt?" The elderly man's eyes lit up with gratitude. Elon's question allowed him to participate, to be part of the process, which meant a lot to him. Together, Elon and the elderly man made sure that his wife was securely and comfortably seated. The elderly man's hands shook slightly as he worked with the seatbelt, but Elon was patient, guiding him without making him feel rushed or inadequate. When the seatbelt was finally fastened, the elderly man patted his wife's hand. Gently, looking at her with a soft smile. The couple, who had perhaps started to feel disheartened by the lack of kindness in society, were visibly moved. Elon's willingness to take the time to focus entirely on helping, without any rush or distraction, was something they hadn't expected. As Musk finished making adjustments to the seat and double-checked that the elderly woman was comfortable, he took a step back, looking at the couple with a satisfied smile. "There you go," he said. "Safe and sound." The elderly woman reached out, taking Musk's hand and giving it a gentle squeeze. She didn't say much, but her expressions spoke volumes. "You've been so kind," the elderly man finally said, his voice thick with emotion. "In this day and age, we thought people didn't have time for others anymore." Once she was seated comfortably, he turned to the elderly man. "Do you need help getting in as well, sir?" The elderly man chuckled softly and nodded, appreciative of the offer. "These legs don't work like they used to," he admitted. Elon took a steadying hold of his arm, offering support as the man took his time stepping into the car. But then, the elderly man looked at him for a moment, a faint glimmer of recognition in his eyes. "Wait a second," the man murmured, squinting slightly. "I know I've seen that face before on the TV, right?" He paused, realization dawning slowly. "You're Elon Musk, aren't you?" The recognition settled in, and he chuckled, a little surprised. "I knew you looked familiar. Didn't expect to run into you here, much less get a hand into the car." Elon just smiled, brushing off the significance of it. "Age is just a number," he replied warmly. The man gave him a warm, grateful look. It had been years since anyone had shown him this level of kindness and patience. Something was refreshing about Elon's relaxed approach, as if the fame and responsibilities he carried were only parts of his life, and not the entirety of it. However, stepping in to help an elderly couple into their car wasn't the only thing Elon Musk did that day. What he did next will bring you to tears. After helping the elderly man into the car, Elon noticed that the walker was still outside. Seeing this, he decided to lift it himself and place it in the trunk so the elderly man wouldn't have to handle it. He carefully placed it inside, making sure it was secure. As he closed the trunk, Elon pulled out a business card and slipped it into the corner of the trunk, hoping they'd find it later. He didn't say anything, but the gesture was clear. If they needed help again, he wanted them to know they could call on him, no strings attached. A few people nearby recognized him, and although Elon preferred to keep things low-key, he couldn't avoid the curious glances. One woman paused, clearly moved, and watched him intently. She quickly snapped a picture, but then lowered her phone, as if realizing there was more to witness than capture. The image of Elon, one of the wealthiest people in the world, gently holding the elderly woman in his arms, and, with her husband's help, easing her into the passenger seat, stayed with her. She couldn't shake the sight from her mind. It was rare to see someone with such status showing such humble kindness. Feeling uplifted by the brief encounter, Elon turned and headed to his meeting, his spirits high from the simple joy of having made someone's day a little easier. Did you ever expect that someone as wealthy and busy as Elon Musk would take the time for such small acts of kindness? We'd love to hear your thoughts, so please leave a comment below.